Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Redneck Ways. How's everybody out there in YouTube land? I hope you all set fine and dandy. It's Friday evening, guys. Yes, it is. And it is August the 1st. Where did July go, guys? But anyway, guys, we're going to make us a little video here tonight. So, it is Friday, so it's time for our Friday video. Yeah! Let's all get going. It's Friday, it's Friday. Yeah. All right. Well, since everybody's happy now we're rain on your all's parade. We're going to check out a video, and it ain't that bad, but it's kind of odd because I don't know much about Bitcoin or nothing. But what we're going to be talking about first is about Bitcoin. Um, Texas has really got into the game here on the Bitcoin, and they've built something that I've never heard of, and that is um, Bitcoin mining. Have y'all ever heard of such a thing? Yeah, it's like all these computers put together in one location, and with the public, what they're talking about, it's a nuisance. It's loud, and like just the noise is driving them and their pets crazy. So I thought we'd check this little video I seen the other day. Check it out together, just in case you guys didn't get to see it. I'll bring it to you. Um, I don't really understand Bitcoin, like I was saying, and I don't know how it really works because you cannot have currency if the electric goes out. You know what I mean? So it don't sound like a soundproof system to me. So I will keep my dollars in my pocket. Um, but all the politicians are on board with this. Our president has talked about making a federal coin. I'm surprised it's not going to be called the Trump coin, which it probably will be. But I don't like it. It's just to me, if you ever read Revelations in the Bible, it just points more and more to the mark of the beast, and that's the way they can usher it in. And also, they will know everything we buy, everything, it's going to be horrible. And I don't know, like, if you do side work, even though you're only allowed to make 600 before you get taxed nowadays, but still, they're going to know every little dime you make. So, it's not good, I don't think. Maybe some of you guys disagree, and if you do, put it in the comments, and maybe you know better, maybe you know something I don't know. So let's check out this first video, guys. This is about the the coin mining, and it blew my mind. So here we go. Alrighty, guys, we're starting out here. This young lady, she's talking about, literally has one of these mines in her backyard, and she's kind of explaining what's going on with it, with her experience. And then the next fella is going to actually explain what Bitcoin mining is all about.
Keep the noise in.
But let's back up for a second. What the hell is Bitcoin mining anyway? Regular currency like the US dollar relies on a centralized bank which controls its supply. But Bitcoin is not a centralized currency. It depends on independent actors known as miners, which are simply computers that carry out complicated math problems to verify Bitcoin transactions and list them on a public ledger known as a blockchain. As a reward for their work, miners earn units of Bitcoin for crunching the numbers. The value of a Bitcoin stands at around $117,000, and the reward for mining decreases over time as the number of Bitcoin in circulation increases, making mining a lucrative business. It's made the corporations that own the mining facilities very rich. Marathon Digital and Riot Platforms are two of the biggest whales. A team from Cambridge University estimates Bitcoin uses about 187.9 terawatt hours of electricity per year. That's more than the entire country of Egypt.
Texas is one of the least regulated states in terms of environmental protections or energy protections for communities.
That's Mandy DeRoche, an attorney with Earth Justice, a legal nonprofit that's representing the residents of Granbury and other communities around the country in litigation against Bitcoin mining operations. Bitcoin mining has other harms too, driving up energy costs for consumers, impacting communities' water supply, and pouring so much crypto money into politics that residents feel like no one is looking out for their interests. To explore all this, we traveled across the state to meet with people who are experiencing the impacts firsthand. First, there's the energy costs. Texas is projected to experience a surge in energy demand, potentially doubling by 2030, driven largely by crypto mining and data center technologies.
They're just huge industrial complexes because as you've needed more and more powerful machines, you've needed more capital, you've needed more land, you've needed more access to energy, and only really well-capitalized corporations can do that.
Every $100 million that a company extracts from the energy market is paid by me and all the other Texans. This is an earnings report that was filed with the IRS. And what this tells us is that this one facility resold energy during Winter Storm Uri. So they held on to the electricity that they had. They sold it at a profit during a crisis, right? That's price gouging. In another context, that would be illegal. And instead you have a company that's bragging about the money that it made while people were dying in their homes.
They pay significantly less for their electricity than everyday Texans.
The places we visited across Texas have a few things in common. They're rural and they've experienced a loss of industries, like the town of Rockdale, which once employed thousands of people at an aluminum smelting plant, which permanently closed in 2017. A year later, the town welcomed Bitcoin investors with open arms, with large-scale Bitcoin operations in place by 2020. We met up with Jim Gibson, Rockdale's Economic Development Director.
There is a lot of demand on the energy grid.
Yes.
The price that residents are paying for their energy is going up. Does that resonate with you?
At a personal level, well, there's like two parts. Please don't print this part. Is that okay?
I mean, love to have your honest take. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, that's the one part about it all that I really personally don't care for. So that's just my opinion. That's not the opinion of the city or anybody else.
The next big harm we heard from residents about was the water usage.
They're manipulating our electricity
And taking water.
and taking water.
Teresa lives 18 miles from Corsicana, Texas, where Riot Platforms is building out what is expected to be one of the largest Bitcoin mining operations in the world.
We decided, well, what better place to build a 1 gigawatt site?
Teresa is concerned about Bitcoin.
All right, guys, I kind of skipped up to this next point. This is more what I was talking about. All the petitions are in. All their hands are in. They want this. They want to bring this forward. And this is really what they want. I mean, if you think a few months ago, Trump took away the penny. I mean, he's like, nope, not making a penny no more. And, the penny is just like apple pie. It's very American. Everybody, there's books written about pennies, like penny's worth of gratitude for one. Penny loafers. I mean, there's so much about the penny in our customs. So, but yeah, this is something about the politicians.
County is a rural, mostly Republican place with a population of 65,000 people. President Trump got more than 80% of the vote here in 2024.
And what about President Trump? His family is in the crypto business, profiting off of this. What do you make of that?
I have nothing against President Trump because I think his intentions are good, but the crypto thing, the way he's going about it is not pleasant for all of us.
Did you vote for President Trump?
Yeah, we did, but
How do you feel about that?
they are literally killing people out here. No, I don't like it.
Guys, never finish this up. This is a little bit about the people that live in that town and some of the symptoms they're having.
at somebody. Now I have to worry about vertigo. I also have to worry about my brain not working right.
It never goes away. Headaches never go away.
In Texas, the legal limit for noise is 85 decibels. Researchers have found that prolonged exposure can impact hearing and cardiovascular health, increase blood pressure and heart rate. Other potential risks include headaches, dizziness, and psychological effects.
85 decibels is considered industrial noise inside of a plant. That would mean that you would have to wear hearing protection all the time at your home.
Many of their neighbors have been affected too. The Brownings told us to go see their neighbor, Tom Weeks, who lives just down the road from them. So we did.
Last year, July 2nd, I had a pulmonary embolism and almost died. This is a video that I took one morning. I woke up, I was awakened by the sound.
Wow.
You know, that's our bedroom at, 2 o'clock in the morning.
The idea.
So what do you guys think about that, about Bitcoin mining? I don't like it, and I would definitely not like it if it was right next door to me, and I would definitely be complaining, but it seems like anymore they just don't hear the voice of the people. They forget who owns all this and who's supposed to be running the show. But you know how it's been going. All right, guys. For the ones that sticked around and going to watch the next part, I think this is pretty cool. Um, I ran across this video by luck, and I thought it was really fascinating. And I even tried to do some thermal electric. Um, it didn't work too good for me. And all I really needed to do is tie a piece of iron wire and a piece of copper and then heat one end, and it would work just as good as the video I made here the other day. That's why I deleted it. But anyway, this is about back in the day before Russia fell, and they needed uh, they needed some energy at their radio antennas and at their lighthouses and stuff like that. And they built a thermal electric generator, but they used nuclear power. And they literally left them out in the field for years and years. And there's actually been people that's died. At least I know one in this video they said passed away. But this is very interesting. And also, the very first part I want to show you is about how they powered their old tube um, battery sets out of thermal electric generator, and they used it from kerosene, which I don't understand how they got enough voltage out of these, because everything that I've been watching about thermal electric generator that you can make here at the house, even if you put it in like cells, you're only getting out like 3 to 4 volts. So I don't understand how they got those battery radios running, because the B plus voltage is usually about, I haven't seen anyone less than 70 volts. Usually they're about 96 volts for the B. Of course, the A, they could run the filaments. I can see how that could be ran on, 3 or 4 volts. But maybe one of you guys out there know how they did it with the kerosene lamps. But that's what we're getting ready to watch. This was a really cool show, and I want to show some parts of it, and you may like it to want to go back and watch the whole thing. So let me get her started, guys. We're going to start at the point of the radios.
The war, throughout the Soviet Union, the farms and rural communities.
Alrighty, I think we're back. This is going to start, and this is, like I said, we're starting about the radios, and they did this for propaganda. The Russians wanted to make sure they could be pumping out their propaganda out to the citizens, so they came up with this thermal electric generator, which is actually a kerosene lamp. Here you go. Check it out, guys.
Had been collectivised and were now run by the state as a socialist enterprise. The peasants now toiled the fields in remote areas supervised by communist commissars as part of a great socialist endeavour. These shiny happy people, that's where the REM reference comes from, needed organising, and they needed educating politically and motivating. And one of the tools to do that, then, as it is now, was by the mainstream media. Strictly censored and vetted printed material and state-run newspapers had a major role to play in propaganda. But one of the best devices in the early 1950s, bearing in mind a lot of the Soviet population in the rural areas were illiterate, was the use of the radio. With the use of shortwave radio, Moscow could effectively talk to the whole Soviet population at once, with a very strictly controlled narrative, and therefore state-constructed radios like this one were rolled out across communities throughout the USSR. There was one major problem to all of this. Rural communities across the Soviet Union did not have electricity. But Soviet engineers had come up with a solution to that. These radios would be powered by a thermal electrical generator, powered by a kerosene lantern, that you can see to the rear right of this photograph. These kerosene lantern electrical generators relied on very simple technology, which took advantage of the Seebeck effect. Discovered in 1821 by Thomas Johann Seebeck, applying heat to a semiconductor and cooling the inverse side of that conductor induced an electrical current between the two. This was a very inefficient way of generating electricity, as over 96% of the energy was lost. The Soviet kerosene lantern generators relied on the heat from the lantern flame to heat the hot side of the semiconductor, whilst a crown of cooling fins attached to the top of the lantern would dissipate the heat out into the room, thus inducing enough current to run the shortwave radio. By the mid-1960s, most Soviet rural communities had diesel generators installed, and this type of thermal generator fell into obsolescence. Although the lanterns became obsolescent in the 60s, it would be less.
So what do you think about that, guy? That's pretty crazy. So now what we're going to look at is their bigger, well, the ones that they use nuclear power. And like I said, they after the Iron Curtain fell or whatever, they just left these out there and to disintegrate. And the way they explained, they didn't even seal the reactor. They just put normal bolts and screws in there that any person could just get a wrench and take apart. So let's check that out, guys. Alrighty, guys, here we go.
The Northern Sea Route was hard to navigate and treacherous, but the Soviet government required it for sea trade, but also, more importantly, at the height of the Cold War, for passage for the Soviet Navy. Starting in the early 1970s, the Soviet Union began constructing a chain of over 1,000 lighthouses and radio navigation beacons along its entire coastline, a project that would take well over a decade to complete. There was only one problem. Many of these lighthouses would be hundreds, if not 1,000 miles away from civilization, and during the Arctic winter months could not be visited. So conventional power supplies, such as diesel generation, were not practicable. In looking for a solution to the power supply problem, engineers recalled the success of the kerosene lantern generators used for domestic radios in the 1950s. But now what was needed was enough power to supply a lighthouse and a radio beacon that could be left for years without resupply or maintenance. So now, kerosene lanterns would not be enough. Something altogether hotter and more reliable was needed. Step forward, radioisotopes. This is a pressed ceramic ingot of plutonium-238 oxide, as used on the NASA space probes that I showed you at the beginning of the video. It is glowing red hot due to self-heating, and is around 800 degrees centigrade. The self-heating is caused by the release of radioactive decay heat. Plutonium-238 has a half-life of 88 years. That means that this particular ingot will be glowing red hot at 800 degrees centigrade for the best part of a century. A very brief look at the physics behind this. Radioactive atoms are unstable, and nature abhors instability. So, unstable atoms seek to become more stable by shedding either highly energetic particles or energy, or both, and this is known as radioactive decay. The particles are either alpha particles, which are 2 protons and 2 neutrons, or beta particles, which are highly energetic electrons. Both are forms of ionising radiation and are bad for humans. The excess energy shed can be in the form of highly energetic waves, known as gamma rays, which are ionising, or in heat. Different radioactive atoms decay in different modes. That is either alpha decay, beta decay, or gamma decay. And it should be remembered, not all decay modes are accompanied with the generation of heat. So the takeaway point here is, as well as generating 800 degrees of heat, which is useful to us, this slug of Pu-238 is emitting a fairly horrific level of ionising radiation that you can't see. Pu-238 decays in alpha mode, so it's emitting a storm of alpha particles and maybe a bit of gamma. The red glow here is due to incandescence, that is, non-ionising photons being released from the material due to its high level of heat. No different to putting a piece of steel into a furnace. An important myth I think I need to kill at this point in the video, which will be relevant later, is that radioactive materials do not glow in the dark. This misconception is not helped because certain materials will glow if subjected to ionising radiation, such as phosphor in gaseous tritium light sources on night sights and instrumentation, or the Cherenkov effect, the blue glow. Why is this important? Because human senses cannot detect ionising radiation, no matter how intense and hazardous to the health it is. For example, this is an intensely radioactive cylinder of cobalt-60, a very intense gamma source. Note the ominous warning that says drop and run. Now, if you were to be unfortunate enough to pick this up and hold it in your hand, it would feel cold to the touch. It would not glow in the dark. You would not feel anything. If you held it in your hand for more than 30 seconds, you would lose that hand. If you held it for more than 10 minutes, or you're in the same room as it for more than 10 minutes, it would kill you. Contained within his 1988 whistleblowing memoir, written just for his death, the chief scientific advisor for the Soviet Chernobyl Commission, Valery Legasov, gave a very chilling description of the effect of acute radiation syndrome on the human body. Narrated here by British actor Ade Edmondson.
If it's damaged severely enough, all this radiation will escape. It'll travel through almost anything, drift with the wind, odorless, indiscriminate. And it takes life in silence. Severe exposure to radiation begins a decline that is untreatable and atrocious. After initial dizziness and vomiting, sensitive tissues like the tongue begin to swell. Skin blackens, detaches itself. The cells of your body begin to break down. But your DNA is also grotesquely transformed so that in the days following exposure, you're gradually robbed not just of your life, but of the very thing that makes you the human being you are.
Radioactive material to completely unsupervised and insecure remote locations, the Soviet engineers designed this terrestrial radioisotope thermal generator to power their lighthouses and radio beacons. This is called a Beta M. It is a mid-1970s designed Soviet terrestrial RTG. It is about 1.5 metres wide and 1.5 metres tall, and it weighs just over 1 metric ton. The Russian words stenciled on the crown of the cooling fan say, Ostorozhno radioaktivnost, or in English, caution, radiation. The body of the Beta M unit is a very heavy cast steel bulkhead, about 10 centimetres thick, and this acts as the outer radiation shield. A heavy 20 centimetre thick machined steel lid seals the unit, but in a very serious design flaw, this is secured only with normal industrial bolts, not intrinsically safe, safety interlocked or tamper-proof bolts. Something that will come back to haunt this design in the future.
It's crazy.
Inside the bulkhead sits an inner tungsten liner, which is the primary radiation shield. And above that, the thermal generator and heat exchanger to the cooling fin crown. The heart of the unit, of course, is the radioactive heat source, indicated in red in this diagram, which is about the size of a paint can or a large food can. The power output for the whole unit was 250 watts thermal, equating to electrical wattage of 10 watts, which really doesn't sound much, but you have to remember these units were usually deployed in pairs, and also they charged a battery. They didn't connect directly to the lighthouse. The Beta M radiation heat source looked like this. Unlike spacecraft RTGs, Soviet terrestrial RTGs used strontium-90 as their isotope, not plutonium-238. Why? Because it's cheap. Plutonium is very, very expensive and difficult to produce. Strontium-90 can be refined from civil nuclear reactor waste. But this comes with some serious downsides. The heat output is much lower and the half-life much shorter. This unit would put out about 400 degrees centigrade, but with a half-life of just 28 years, meaning that every 2 decades the heat source would need to be replaced. Strontium-90 is also very, very hazardous to humans. It mimics calcium in the environment and is a bone seeker, and is readily absorbed into the human body. For that reason, the heat source is sealed into a stainless steel 2 centimetre thick flask and hermetically sealed. Due to the Bremsstrahlung effect, the X-ray radiation being emitted from this unit would be about 2 sieverts an hour. And this is a Beta M RTG unit out in the field in the present-day Russian Federation, looking very sorry for itself and neglected. But trust me on this one is in quite good condition. This appears to be a defunct Soviet radio beacon site. The collapsed radio mast is along the ground behind the unit, and the RTG transit case is very rusted. Quite often you'll find the RTGs deployed in these steel-framed cases. This was to enable them to be underslung from a military helicopter to be deployed. From the 1970s to the late 90s.
Alright guys, I'm going to jump around here a little bit. Now I'm going to jump to the story of these campers, and it didn't turn out good for them. One of the fellers found one of these and it had been opened and he had no idea. So let's listen to the story. Alright guys, here we go. And before we get into it, which is right soon after this, can you believe that people would steal metal, people that want to go junking and get metal to recycle would get in these and take them apart? Crazy, huh? Check this out.
Unfortunate enough to approach it. But weather alone was not the greatest safety threat to the abandoned RTGs. That was, as always is, human stupidity and greed. The abandoned lighthouse and beacon sites provided potential rich pickings for metal thieves and scavengers who cut away the valuable copper and stole electrical equipment. Some were wise enough not to go anywhere near the RTGs, but many were not. This RTG unit has been attacked by a metal thief, presumably with a sledgehammer, who lacked the tools to open the case. On occasion, metal thieves would be stupid enough to open an RTG case, which, as I described earlier in the video, can be done with just a domestic spanner set. This is a Beta M unit that has been fully dismantled by metal thieves, and the radioactive heat source and tungsten inner radiation shielding removed. According to the International Atomic Energy Authority, the Russian authorities found the radioactive heat source unit about 100 metres away from this Beta M unit and recovered it using a bomb disposal robot. The metal thieves that did this were never caught, but they would almost certainly have suffered very serious radiation sickness and possibly would have died. By the late 1990s, even the Russian government had to admit they had a serious problem on their hands. But with sad inevitability, it would take a serious incident of death and injury to innocent parties to galvanise the international community into dealing with the Soviet RTG problem. And that incident was the Lear event in 2001. Lear is a small town in the Caucasus country of Georgia. Georgia was once part of the Soviet Union, but gained independence in 1991. Our story takes place in December 2001. 3 men from the town took a flatbed truck up into the mountains above Lear, intending to cut wood from the forest to sell on as firewood. Towards the end of the day gathering wood, one of the men found an area in the forest about 5 metres in circumference where the snow had completely melted. In the centre of this circle was a silver metal cylinder that was sizzling like an iron as the snowflakes fell on it and boiled off. Sadly, viewers, I'm pretty sure you've already guessed what this unfortunate woodsman has found. But how would a poorly educated woodsman have any comprehension of the danger he was in? Fascinated by this magical natural heater, the woodsman decided to make a makeshift snare and drag the cylinder to the forest track, to the area where he and his friends were intending to camp for the night. The hot cylinder was propped up against a pile of rocks to reflect the heat back onto the sleeping area. The other woodsman lit a fire, and as night fell, the three of them sat around the fire drinking bootleg vodka. After about 2 hours, all three woodsmen began vomiting. They had intense headaches, something they attributed to contaminated vodka. They attempted to sleep, but sleep was impossible as their sickness got much, much worse during the night. Eventually, in the early hours, they could take no more and decided to strike camp and drive back into Lear. Back in Lear, all three men began to suffer burning sensations across their entire bodies. Woodsman 1, who had found the cylinder, lost the use of his hands as his fingers had swollen up and it was painful to make a fist. All three sought medical attention, and within 7 days, all three were hospitalised. Local medics could not deal with the severity of their symptoms, so they were transferred to a military hospital in Tbilisi. At the military hospital, radiation exposure and acute radiation syndrome was diagnosed. And this is footage of all three being treated for serious radiation burns 4 weeks now after the incident. Patient 1 was the woodsman who found the metal cylinder, and he was the one that slept closest to it by the pile of rocks at the campfire. Patient 2, the second woodsman, had slept the second closest to the metal cylinder, but about a metre further away than patient 1, and it was this metre that probably saved his life. He had radiation burns to his legs, buttocks and upper back. Patient 3, the third woodsman, slept the furthest away, about 3.5 metres away from the metal cylinder, and he had patchy burns to his upper back only. Due to YouTube community standards, thankfully I cannot show you any more of the medical condition of the woodsman. But Valery Legasov's description was completely accurate earlier in the video. Their decline was horrendous. Radiation burns do not heal like normal burns, and all three woodsmen required multiple skin grafts. Also, because their immune systems had been destroyed by the radiation, all three needed bone marrow transplants. Thankfully, Woodsman 2 and Woodsman 3 survived their treatment after months in hospital. Sadly, Woodsman 1, patient 1, the guy who found the metal cylinder and slept closest to it, did not live, and he died after months of treatment. Once the woodsmen were diagnosed with a severe...
Alrighty guys, that's all on that. Ain't that sad? It's sad. Now if you want to see the rest of this video or watch this video, it is called, the title is The Soviet Union's Deadly Abandoned Nuclear Generators. And it's 2 years old. 2.2 million views so far on YouTube. And the creator is Andy McLoone. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Alrighty, guys. Now for a half year mark before we end the video, let's watch a little something fun. I hope you all are having a great, great, great Friday. Alrighty, guys. Until the next one, I'll see you right here at Redneck Ways. You all be safe. All kinds of crazy stuff going on out there, guys. Keep your head on a swivel and keep everything dry. And be ready. Alright, guys. Probably do a video tomorrow. Hopefully, find something cool at the flea market tomorrow. Bye, guys.